the creative idea of what matters most to me, what would I most like to have happen, seeing that, being open to envisioning the parts that you don't control. Like imagine the clients, see the wealth, see the fitness, see the, anything that you want to see. And then it's that next move, which I think is what you were saying you were struggling with. It's like, okay, well, if that's my intention, what is the thing that I can control?
Are you listening?
This is the Rob Scott Show.
Damn.
I mean, really, like if we're not trying to change the world, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Rob Scott Show. I am Rob. I am here with Sarah. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
I'm Sarah. I'm good.
Awesome. You want to talk about something that we've talked about before.
Yeah. We sometimes like to circle back because we cover a ridiculous amount of things in an episode, and sometimes it's fun to dig back in. So I wanted to talk today about like intentions versus goals. So
intentions versus goals. Part of the inspiration, we had a group coaching call. That was last night. Yes, That was last night. And
no, 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. Sorry, 2 nights ago. So amazing call, and that was important to go over again on that call. And what you said to me before we hit record here was, it was interesting because it was your favorite part of that call again. It's something you've heard from me many, many times. You watch somebody else need that distinction. And you also said that not only was it the most interesting thing to you, again, even though you know about it, but it was something that you were just applying in your life. And then it's hard to do even when you know about it. So it's a really important part of accomplishment and goal setting successfully to understand this distinction, and not too many people talk about it. So we decided to actually do a whole show on this one idea of intentions versus goals, and how you should think about these things as you're trying to create change in your life and accomplish things. So sorry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I have wandering thoughts about it at all, but let me give a little bit more background. So the group where we have been kind of greatly discussing goal setting and accountability is our monthly coaching group. And so part of the kind of initial initiation into that group is we ask that our people set goals, and they state them, and we kind of help, or I should say, Rob helps coach them through getting clear and actionable goals. And then we post them into our Facebook community. So as part of this last week or this month's challenge, Rob and I both want to step up and do that ourselves. So to circle back, one of the things that Rob said from the beginning when he talks about goals versus intentions that I liked a lot is that when you set goals, it's important to make them simple, actionable, and within your control, which often I think for a lot of us, when we think of goals, like the most like kind of widespread goals, New Year's resolutions, right? That people are like, I'm gonna make these goals. And so they are kind of either grand statements of like, I'm going to work out every day this year. And they're missable, like very easily missable, because we're enthusiastic and we really want change. And it's like, or they're something that's not in our control. So an example of this, I'm going to pull it from the call directly. Someone was talking about how they're growing their business and how they really want to have three new clients by the end of the month, which sounds like a great goal. If I walked in and said, hey, I'm doing this, this new business thing. I want 3 new clients by the end of the month. I'm going to get high fives and pats on the back because it's like a great thing to shoot for. However, that is not a goal, as you pointed out. So Rob was saying that's an intention, because we don't get to control who signs up, who buys. That's up to them. The intention is that we have new clients, and intentions are great. But what's the goal? And it really made me stop and think, I would have heard that and thought that that's a goal. But really then the intention for that specific example, it was, I'm going to run X amount of Facebook ads per day at this cost or whatever. So very tangible, actionable things. And what Rob did on that call was he challenged everyone who was sharing and making these goals to post it and make it something that's visible. Right. Mm-hmm. So I thought was another great addition to this idea of goals being something in your control. And I thought that general.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was thought in general that people outside of the group listening to our podcast would also kind of benefit into digging into this distinction with that.
Yeah, so it's funny that you added the visual thing at the end, because this is kind of a big deal. While you were describing the New Year resolution type goals, right, where we just kind of throw a dart at the board, or we do some grand statement, very often we are going out into the future and we're describing something that, like, we imagine something. We imagine I'll have the more money, or I'll have some car, or I'll have, whatever the hope is, right? And it's the visual part of that is actually really important. And when it's an intention, the distinction that matters is not whether it's visual or not. Actually, it's whether we can control it happening or not fully, right? So what
Can you
most
explain that again? Because I'm not sure I get that.
Well, so I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about, right? Like an intention of mine, and these are just words I'm choosing, right? Whether somebody like wants to look up what intention means, it doesn't matter. I'm purposely calling these different things so that as we work in it, we can use these. And it's just, I think it's useful to think about it like this. So in the way that I'm saying it, an intention is just a future that you're imagining that you can see in your head, but it may or may not be something that you control. All right. That is an important part of getting to your goals. That is like the future that you want to see. So I, like you, love that idea of, I want to have 3 clients. That's great. Drives the business. I get it. But that is not something that you can actually go do, right? You can set up sales calls that you hope people show up for. You can run a webinar. You can run ads. There are things that you absolutely can do. So the move here is to not stay with the easy just vision of the future. Because if I say I'm going to have 3 clients, or that's my goal, it's like fantastic, but that is not a workable thing directly. There's nothing directly to do about that in that description. It's not clear. Like, great. So how are you going to get those clients? And what are the things that you can actually commit to that you will do, right? That are yours, that now give you full agency to take action toward creating that intention, right? To create that thing.
Right.
And so then you back up and you set up and you go, I'm going to run a webinar. I'm going to run Facebook ads. I'm going to do this and that. And you check those. Are those really possible in this time frame? Can I really do that? Now you've got like dead clarity, and it becomes really simple to take those actions. Now I'm going to tell you that you succeeded even if you didn't get the 3 clients, right? You succeeded in hitting your goals if you did all those things. And you can feel really confident, and chances are you will feel really confident because now you're showing up for what's important in your life. The thing that's okay about that, even if you didn't get the clients, is you learned what didn't work, right? Or you learned what you still need to do better, but you've moved toward it in a realistic way. So many people are doing this manifest thing, and I'm just going to imagine myself being an author, and I'm going to imagine myself, I'm a famous author. That's my goal, right? And it's like, well, you ever being famous, you have nothing to do with that. Like, there are things you can do toward it, but it's not up to you. Like, the people have to adore you back. And so through that, that's what tips it over into an intention, right? So then the other level of the visual portion of this is that when it's a goal, we're trying to set up something that is external so that we can actually see it done in the world, because we're talking about actions. And so a lot of people will create goals that are, I want to feel a certain way, right? My goal is to feel more confident this month, or my goal is to, take more action, right? We're getting into vagary and things. It's like, well, if you're going to take more action, like what actions, when, what are we talking about, so that we can describe it in the world, so that an accountability buddy or a coach or someone else could actually see it happen in the world, right? So a couple of people that were on the call but got off before I was able to work with them, have pretty vague goals. It's like, I want to not care what people think about me was one, right? That's fantastic. I love that. But you're going to go in and out of emotional states all through the month. So if you're going to be somebody who doesn't care what people think about you, what are you going to do to sort of test that in the world that I could see? Well, are you going to go to Toastmasters and give 2 talks? Are you going to sign up to give a webinar? Like, what are the things that you're going to do that we can actually see? So that's where it has to be, once you're like reporting it to a group, something that's visual, that you can see, that's tangible, because it's about the doing. It's not just about state experience at that point, and something internal.
Right. And I guess if we could back up and restart the episode, I would open it with saying, like, we're going to debunk or kind of help you solve the most common mistakes people make when they're setting their goals, because I think that's like what you said is such great advice, and it's like broken down and it sounds so simple, and truthfully, I don't think it is. But that's why I love, like, that's why I wanted to kind of circle back and talk about this topic, because now running the group and kind of going months with these people, with a group of people who are all trying to set goals, and me myself participating, setting goals, that I had my thought and it just like flew out of my
It flew
head.
right out.
No, but it was like
so it's nice working with people
yeah.
over a couple of months. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then there's kind of like these two mistakes, which is like what we kind of just talked about. They're not in our control. And then what you alluded to, but I don't know if you explicitly said it, is that they're overly complex, in which you said, is it doable in that amount of time? Is it something that's reasonable? Because that's kind of the two, and I fall into both of these, like, I will say, common, mistakes in setting goals is, okay, I'm like, all right, this is all the stuff that's in my control. But like, when I go and look at my calendar and my resources, and I'm honest with myself about like how much time I'm going to allot, I'm like, oh, I just like shot real big, which of course maybe you could talk more about like the idea of, you do want to shoot big, but also, you want to be setting reasonable expectations for yourself. And so that's kind of a balancing act that I think is interesting.
Yeah, that part of it might be more art than science, right? There's this, what can we expand into? And so, when people hear me think about this, they think I'm anti-intention, right? They think I'm anti this creative mind, and I'm not at all. It's just, that's only the first step, right? And I want you to be really good at that. I want that to be stretch. I want that to be big and vibrant. I want you to be able to change your state about it so that you believe it could be a reality, right? There's these things about, if you're making up things and you don't even think they can happen, that's almost useless, because your system's just going to be set up to prove you right.
Right.
Yeah. So if it's too big and scary and you don't believe in it, then it's probably not going to happen. But if it's too small, then you're not playing big enough in your life. And so that's an art where, what can we get into that's like really the right thing? And it's funny, because when we're working with people in the group, you'll watch me go, is that big enough for you? And, and they'll go, it sure is. And I'm like, I don't believe you. And the rest of the group can feel it, right? You can feel it when somebody's kind of playing small. And then, the other side of that is, people will claim, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And it's like a year's worth of goals that they're claiming for the month. And it's like, great, all right, chill out, Adderall King or whatever's going on there. Like, how about we pick one that's really meaningful, that's a game changer, that's simple. And if you can do more, go nuts. But the commitment that we're talking about is this one thing that's really a game changer, for the month. Like, what would that one thing be?
Well, you talk about discovering what matters to you most, not what matters to you, ... but what matters to you most.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important part of that.
Totally.
Too.
And the one we had somebody who said 2, and they were both great, and they were both reasonable, and I think he can do them both. And I wanted to see what he wrote in the Facebook group, and he just picked one. And I was like, perfect. It was perfectly done. He picked the one that was the most important. And I'm sure he'll probably do the other one too, because it fits with it and it'll have to happen. But his claim to the world and to everybody else is like, this is what I'm going to make happen this month. And he can totally control it. It's exactly what he wants to do. And it's sourced by a really incredible intention for building a group and a community and having this many members and all that stuff that he only controls part of. Right. So I love what you kind of renamed the episode, which I guess we'll just name the episode that or whatever. But it's kind of removing the problems of goal setting. Is, this process is the creative idea of what matters most to me. What would I most like to have happen? Seeing that, being open to envisioning the parts that you don't control. Like, imagine the clients, see the wealth, see the fitness, see the, anything that you want to see. And then it's that next move, which I think is what you were saying you were struggling with. It's like, okay, well, if that's my intention, what is the thing that I can control to kind of that most smartly supports that? That is,
as someone who likes to control a lot of things, it's always hard to know what is exactly in my control.
Right. But it's also like, what's my best bet to make that intention happen? Right. That's what's so important between the intention and the goal is there's a lot that you do control. And the reason you may not make the intention happen or do enough to get it to happen is like, maybe your strategy was wrong or what you choose to do wasn't the right thing or whatever. But the game that we're actually playing is, can I set a goal for myself that's my best bet on creating what I want in my life? And then can I show up for it in a way that's really meaningful and consistent and then get good at that, so that then when I set my next goal, it's a good thing. And the power that that gives us in our confidence, the power that gives us as a leader in the world, right? That's the kind of person that any business would hire. If you're somebody that can go, I see the future that I want to create, or that this business wants to create. I think this is our best bet to get it done. Here's what I can commit to. And consistently, and not perfectly, but consistently, you're somebody that can like deliver on that and really show up. You're a total outlier in our world today. Like that's a very rare thing,
Right.
to consistently be able to do that. And it is that simple to come back. And this gives us a super amount of clarity in the clutter and in the overwhelm and in the anxiety and in the rumination that we can get caught in mentally, to carve all that out and point our mind at something and go, this is what I want to be in the doing space of my life. This is what I want to be focusing on, just for this.
See past episodes on managing your attention and defining your values. No, but so often when we record, obviously you can all tell that Rob and I are not scripted.
Yeah.
Rob will say, do you have any questions? Feel free to ask questions on there. And I'm always like, well, just start talking. I have questions. I'll have questions. So I have like a whole bunch of questions, but we'll start with, so I have obviously found out that you can have intentions without goals. What are your thoughts on, A, can you have goals without an intention? And B, can you have action without goals?
Yes. I mean, we're always in action, right? Even when you're laying there, your heart's beating and stuff is going on, right? So that something's going to happen, until you die. Something's going to happen this next month. If we just keep that month, there's a whole other conversation about like, what's the right time period? Some people are like, you should be focusing on a big thing for the quarter. Some people are like, it's a day thing. And it's all of those things, right? Like over a month, that big goal breaks down into action steps, maybe, or it might, for some people, it might be more of like a daily habit. It might be an eating habit or a workout habit, or, so is the goal like a behavioral thing? Is the goal a project that needs to happen and then never happen again, right? Understanding that difference between, is this a new habit I need to take on in my life that'll never stop, right? Like, if I'm starting a new business, outside of selling it or having it fail, I hope that I now have a new thing to do for many years to come, right? That's a new habit. But if I just need to build a new website, that might happen over a month or a quarter or whatever, and then we're done and it's launched and I don't really have to do that thing in the same way. So there's a lot of distinction in what the action is, but to just be difficult, something's going to happen this month. And you don't need to have goals or an intention. Like, then you're just sort of, maybe really a way to think about that is you're being batted around by other people's intentions, right? Those are what followers look like, right? That's when your boss is telling you what to do, or when you're not really doing much of anything, you're laying on the couch and you're watching Netflix and you're consuming and all that, right? So if we want to be a creator, if we want to be a leader, at least to some degree in our own life, doing it with intention and with, using our own attention towards something which is conscious to us, right? So this is us. And, another side
goals
note,
as like a protection for our own, like a self-love protection to protect our own values. Priorities.
So I love that. I mean, it's almost an expression of our values.
Right. Expression of our values.
Rather than self-protection, which that's not untrue, but I like the angle of, and we almost said the same thing, but in very different ways, right? We can get obsessed with accomplishment. So if that's true for you, there's something in you that needs to heal. And so very successful people that are miserable don't have the self-love aspect, don't have the presencing aspect, don't have mastery of their own attention. They're caught in, maybe I'm not there yet, or it's not good enough yet. And to the outside world, they may be incredibly good at goals and one of those outliers I was talking about before, but they're not psychologically and emotionally sound in their being, right?
Right.
We're not talking about that deeply in this episode. We're talking about, like, let's say you have that, okay, and let's say you especially have that. A lot of people worry that, oh, well, now you're just going to go meditate on if you're just happy and you have self-love and there's all these things, then you don't have to accomplish anything. Right. You don't have to prove anything. And I'm going to tell you that what actually comes from that then is the expression, the creative expression of, wow, what can I go create in the world? Like, do I need to write or paint or be of service to somebody, or, those types of things come in. And so what we're doing with our intention is the expression of our self-love and our values
Yeah.
in action in the world, because some action's going to happen, and you'll find that if you really do have self-love and all that stuff going on, you'll be really, really bored if you haven't found a purpose to apply that toward.
No,
right?
yeah, that's spot on. Yeah.
So you end up doing that. So could you have a goal without an intention? Sure. I mean, you could be told your goals by a boss. You could decide, you could just be very tangible and not worried about other people in some way. So, I mean, theoretically, yeah, but I think they tend to go together. And again, the intention is just, what is the real vision of the future without worrying if you control it or not? Like, what is the world you want to see?
Sure.
Right. And so having a really clear description of that, this is one of the best leadership tools. If I, as a boss to a team of people, can describe a future that is so crystal clear that everyone else can see it too in their own mind, there's so much less teaching or guidance that I have to give them.
Right.
And this is when you can really hire people that are capable to innovate on their own. Right. The opposite of that is if somebody can't see the vision, let's say there's a language barrier, they don't even understand my business, or they don't get it at all. And
they have different values.
Yeah, they have different
priorities.
values. They have a different future that they'd like to see, whatever. Then I have to manage them like, look, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. And if I can maybe get the result that I want by being really granular in my management of that person toward, because the vision's not doing the heavy lifting because we don't have that defined very well, right? The other thing that, and what all the great companies do is the vision's so clear, so powerful, so amazing that these innovative, really talented people come here that are better in whatever their field is than the leader, right? This guy's better at copy, and this guy's better at design, and they go, I see what you see. Let me show you what I got. And to whatever degree they're innovating and doing these things, and then the leader can just come in and go, wow. And that's where the leader's job now is really just visionary and all that. So maybe
you definitely answered my question, because it really highlights. You had said, like, I think people often or were thinking like, I'm anti-intention, and I'm not, because you can really see when you kind of look at both sides of it, that goals and intentions do kind of assist each other, and although they can both exist without the other, like, they're the perfect recipe for getting stuff done. And I think, like, related to that is priorities, values. There's a whole bunch of things that help you make better goals and better intentions, but I can see the power in doing them both versus just having all these intentions and not having the clarity and action.
Yeah, I mean, a goal without an intention is, I only want to eat 2,000 calories a day every day this month or something. And then you say, well, why? And I guess it could be legitimately true that the person doesn't really have a clear vision of why that's important. They've just decided that their doctor told them to, or right. Whatever the thing is, right? What's way more powerful is having a real vision, a real creative vision of the future, which is this intention. This matters to me. I would like to see that happening. And then the work to back up from that is to go, well, what do I control there, right? What's the best strategy to get there that I control? So let's say that your vision is we're going to make $1 million this year in our business. Backing up, what are the possible goals to achieve that are near infinite. I mean, there's there's 1,000 things we could offer, a whole new line of products. We could try to take over another company. We could try to do it through book authorship. We could innovate a new product that's a technology. I mean, like, literally, we could just make up stuff forever, because there's all kinds of paths to that intention, right? So the clearer that intention gets, starts to say, well, what's the goal really need to be? But more than that, it's now you've got this work, which thinking and cognition is expensive calorically, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we are built to only think to where we can kind of make general assumptions and go, I got it, and then bounce off it. So this is the work where it becomes like we're tired. We might not want to think about it this deeply, but if you spend a little bit of time actually breaking that down into, here's a meaningful goal that would be like, that seems like a good bet to manifest. That is the best bet to make $1 million this year. That is the best bet to get 3 clients. Now you're deciding. We talked about the power of decision, right? On that call a couple of days ago. Now you're deciding. That clarity of that decision cuts away the noise of everything else. Now you can get to the one thing. And now you wake up, and even if you forgot what it was, maybe you wrote it down, or maybe you've committed it to somebody else, and you're, oh yeah, that's what it is. And it holds you in this really beautiful space where that's the only place your attention really needs to be. And you just find yourself accomplishing way more.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. And it's like, it's kind of very, very kind of parallel to another conversation about, you know, transformation and change, which, like, I don't think we should go there necessarily in this episode, but it's just what I connected to in my mind about this whole kind of, magic isn't our favorite word, but almost this magical aspect of like doing that happens when you get that right. Like when your values, your intentions are what is the thing that's like lighting the fire in you versus like, hey, my doctor told me to,
Right.
eat better and exercise, and how I guess your brain is such a useful tool. Your thoughts are such a useful tool in doing that. And then
it's so important that it's yours, right? The agency of our own passion and our own caring is just, it's crucial, right? We want to be connected to our purpose. We want to know what matters to us. And a lot of times the dysfunction that we're seeing emotionally in people, the reason we need therapy, the reason we need whatever, is we've got internal value conflicts, right? I really love this person, but I'm so mad at them and I don't know what to do about it. Or I promised this to my partner, I promised this to my friend. What do I do about it? This thing happened and I really want the benefit of it, but morally it doesn't feel right. And that's this internal conflict. And so when we really know ourselves, when we really know our values, when we really know what we want to see in the world, now we're starting to feel sane, solid, clear, powerful. We can start taking action toward that. And life, external life especially, starts feeling just amazing. I mean, just way, way, way better than if we're messy inside, or we haven't made the decision yet, or, I know it's this thing, right? People like leave marriages and they care about somebody else, but they don't want to get a divorce yet because they still have a child with the first person. And so they're riding this thing where it's like they want both worlds. I don't want to be with that woman, but I still want to be married because I'm a father, but I'm in love with this woman. But if I leave, then I'm too committed, and it's this huge dramatic mess for them. And it's a huge value conflict underneath. Internally, they want the freedom and they want to follow their passion and their love, but they also value parenting and they value the commitment they made to the wife that maybe they're no longer in love with, but they, when they were married, they made a commitment. So without deciding what really matters there and saying who you are in this moment, what matters to you now, we end up messy. And it drains all our energy, not just our creative energy, but we literally can feel tired and sick and overwhelmed and deeply unhappy without that clarity of vision and the commitment to take action toward it and really having agency, right?
Well, I mean, I love that you got to values, because like literally the last thing that I was going to say on this was, in past episodes or past, I'm not sure, past calls or past programs, but you talked about how kind of the solution to indecision, procrastination, perfectionism around, goal setting, because that kind of would be my next, where I would want to go next with it, is the clarity of knowing what matters to you and what your values are. And I also love that you talked about values conflict, because I was literally talking about values conflict yesterday. But yeah, so it does really come down to, and this is kind of counterintuitive, because if someone's like, I'm stuck, I'm feeling stuck, like you said, I'm feeling drained, I don't know what direction I'm pointing in, I don't know how to set clear intentions. You would think like, okay, that's when people bust out their lists and they're like, I'm going to write all these goals. And maybe the step there isn't busting out a, paper and pen. Instead of starting with your goals, start with your values and see, like, is there something else going on? And then like get your intentions and then get your goals.
Totally. Let me edit that though a little bit, because our values are actually really hard to navigate in some grand write down situation, right? It's funny, we have a values question in one of our courses and people come in and almost everybody checks almost all of them off, right? So nobody sees a value that lots of us care about, like honor or loyalty or honesty or whatever, and doesn't check it, right? Because we care about all of them. And we also have this difference between espoused values and behavioral values, right? So espoused values,
we talked about that,
right? So what I'm going to tell you I value and what I really believe I value is one thing, but then in my behavior, I actually value laziness and being a sloth and gluttonous kind of behaviors and all these things. And what I mean by that is like, it's what do I value with my time and attention, right? So I'm not just talking about, do I value honor and loyalty and my nation and whatever, all these big concepts. I'm talking about in the down and dirty. What do you care about right now? What is valuable to you? What would you like to create that matters? And when issues and pains come up, what's at stake? What are you trying to hold on? What are you valuing in that's driving this emotional connection to something? So, wow, I value that. I want to be my word about that commitment over here, but I also value how passionate I am about this person, or, and so now we see, okay, these are two values that you have inside you that are now conflicting. So now you've got to really decide which of them matters most, and then decide and have the courage to follow through after that. And that's where you'll find real clarity, and where you can go, okay, now I'm not trying to hold on to every avenue I could go down. I want to say, it's really important that I say one more thing. I think this is a really valuable idea. It's about options. Okay. Human beings have a bias to keeping options. It just feels valuable to us. If I have an option to stay or an option to go, and there's no forced time on doing it, if I'm scared about which one's right, I don't want to give up my options on that. But if I don't give up my options, I never actually go down either path, right? So day after day stays, and I'm in this thing where, yes, I might still have both options, but it's exhausting to me because I haven't made a choice. I haven't actually decided. One of the most standout differences of people who are successful CEOs and things like that is they make quick decisions and then they stick to them, right? So they see an option like that and they go, that's the better way, go that way. And boom, and they've already moved, right? How many of us are holding on to, like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I start that business? No, maybe I'll just learn more. Maybe whatever, And we're holding on to all these options. And this is why you see sales pages that have timers that are going to end, because the person that's selling it is saying, look, there's going to be a cost if you don't make a decision by this time, because there's a default in us that goes, if there's no change between me making the decision now and tomorrow, it's easier to just not make the decision. So we don't make the decision, right? That's why if there's not an option on a real estate property and the price is going up and down and you've got an option at a certain price, it's really hard to exercise it if I don't know that maybe the deal's going to be better tomorrow. If I just don't exercise it, maybe it's going to be better tomorrow. So we stay not making a decision. So those are always written with times on them. So you have to make a decision based on, or you're going to lose the option, right? So in our life, we gotta watch for where we're holding on to these options and where we can really actually decide and make a choice and go forward towards something. Even if it's not the exact right thing, it's still action, it's still movement, it still shows us that we can accomplish and decide and move forward in things. That power of not exercising options and how attractive that is to us is a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, just like going back to what you're saying about values, I love that whenever you redefine a word. So I definitely, when I was thinking, instead of writing down goals, write down values, I meant it in that way, or maybe in priorities. But a great tip, I think, to pull back out of there and highlight again is that you're not necessarily writing like honor, integrity,
Yes,
honesty,
right.
compassion. You're finding what is the most valuable to you.
Yes.
And then and then trying the best you can to put those in order for what matters most to least. And that changes, like not nailing it, writing it in stone, but just like really getting clear on that. And then, as a first step, then going right to the goal, like I'm going to work out every day of the year.
But the best way to start with that is really, what's your intention? What do you want to see? And
you want to put intentions in front of values?
No, I want your values and your
to inform your intentions.
No, it is they're the same thing. Like, your intention is what you value. Okay. So like that is what you want to happen. That is the intention is the valuable thing to you. Right.
So you can have an intention conflict. I mean, values
absolutely.
Conflict is just an intentions conflict.
Totally. 100%. So your value literally in the world, right? Like, if I decide on a Saturday to watch TV all day, I valued TV that day. Even if I want to tell you, I don't like TV, I wish I didn't watch it, whatever, but I still chose it. Like, that's where my attention was. That was what was valuable to me in that moment. If I decided to get up to go get a hoagie, right? Like, I valued the hoagie. Like, that's what I could have done anything in that moment. And I decided that that's what I'm doing. Right. So we're following our values in any moment, what we value. Okay. So the way to get it's hard to go now. It could be really valuable. Like, what do I value in relationship? Right. Well, I really need trust and I want to make sure that we're attracted to each other. Like that's a very valuable thing to do. And that doesn't have to be the expression of an intention. Okay. But what's easier around goal setting, since that's sort of what we're talking about today, is start with the intentions, but realize that those are what you value. And it's really good to figure, like, why do I value that? Right? Like, why is this thing important? Why is that what I want? So as you're describing your future, it's really important to know, like, I want 3 clients. Like, why do you want them? Right? Is it just because you need to pay the bills and that's how you've chosen to do that? Or is it because you really want to be of service to those people? Like, that's good information to have with it. So I'm not at all disagreeing with you. I'm trying to pull people into your values are way less just sort of ethereal and out there. They're truly like, I want you to think about them like that's the thing that you're wanting. Your desire is that thing that you're trying to value and manifest and bring into your life, right?
Sure. Yeah. And for the people that have like 20 of those, just it's sorting them by priority.
Totally. Can they all fit together?
Right.
How do they work together? And those are some of the biggest breakthroughs that we go. And it's like I want this, I want that, I want the other. And finding like, oh, underneath that is like, you really need to feel significant and be of service. These two together really do that. That one's going to hold you back from all of it. Cut away that, make the decision to do these 2 things only. And now they've got clarity and they're like, oh, wow. And they can be better in those spaces. And it really, really helps. Right.
Well, and I also really, just to highlight one other nuanced aspect of that is what you said about the person who had 2 really good goals. They were simple, they were clear, and they ended up posting one. And when you said is they'll probably do both, but what he's claimed is one. And sometimes, just claiming one, it doesn't mean you can't do the other things.
Right.
But it keeps you out of that, well, I haven't decided on what they are yet, so I can't do anything kind of, conversation in your head. So
yeah. Another way to procrastinate.
I thought that was cool too. Yeah. Because it's like, oh, of course I can do 20 things this month.
Sure.
I can claim one of them is the most important. I can knock it out and then keep going. And it's not, you're not pigeonholed to the one thing that you decide.
100%. This is
but
not
it keeps
limit
you
to
from
that.
indecision. And then as far as what you're saying about options, I don't think I have that because that sounds terrible to me.
Which the options as far as
give me a menu with one thing on it. Give me one outfit to wear every day.
Totally.
Give me I am like, which as you give all these examples of where we have options in the world, I'm like, okay, that's probably true. And I don't know what is different about me, but I'm like, that sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah. The other place that this starts to get into, and something that we've said a lot about in the past, I know that I want to say more about it in the future, is this codependency kind of move. So we talked a little bit about self-worth and self-love. Sometimes we can need to look to others for our self-worth and our self-love. And what you'll find is if you're stuck in a codependent relationship, or you tend to have codependent tendencies, let's say, where you're over functioning for other people, it's really important. Like a way that you can tell that is it becomes hard for you to see a future for yourself that matters. A lot of your goals and intentions will be around, how can my partner feel better? How can they succeed at this? Well, if they're happy, then I'll be happy, right? And we've really lost ourselves in a sense. And so once you've picked the one thing that's important to you this month, that is what you value, right? That's what you're claiming. Like, this is what I value. This is what I'd really like to have happen. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that can be actually really hard to find if we're expressing codependency or an enmeshed kind of way of being. Because you don't really express that, for you, finding that clarity is often really clear. Options aren't hard, but some of those options come up when it's like, I don't know what I need here. And this person needs this and they need this. And so it's very difficult. And we feel so unempowered and so small, right, that we can't really claim this is what I want, right? So it's a powerful move just to be able to see the intention or the vision, right? Know why it matters to us, be really clear on that, tie that back to something that's tangible and doable and awesome and simple, et cetera, and then show up for that thing and be that person. But that says that we've already got enough self-love and self-clarity to go, I know what I want. Like, I'm clear in what I value and what matters to me. And sometimes when we're enmeshed or codependent, it's hard to even know what we value.
So we'll have to come back to that.
We'll
To
come
be
back to it.
to be continued.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm really glad that we came back to this because I feel
Good.
like, not that it's all about me, but I definitely got more insight into it, and I really genuinely hope that our listeners did as well, because I just think I think I said to Rob something before we hit record along the lines of like, there's certain things that I could have like infinite conversations about and continue learning more and more and more, and this is definitely one of them. So I hope that our listeners, this is helpful to you. I hope that
I want to add one, like here's the overview of the whole thing, right? Decide what matters to you this month, right? Just what future would you like to see at the end of this month that would be amazing? What's the thing? I'm going to say that you value that. I'm going to say that your values are driving that, right? Get really connected to that. Realize you may not control all of that. So what parts of that do you control? Get really clear on what those are. Make sure that that's something you can do, make it doable, and show up and start doing that. If you're struggling with even finding the vision, you might have some self-worth, self-love stuff. If you're not able to decide, there's too many things, you might have some options overload where you just really need to make the decision and pick it. And when you actually have decided and picked one, you can still have others, but it's really, really clarifying and really, really helpful. And so use that as a system to figure out what your goal, your most important goal is. And I think that's really, really helpful.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Cool. We'll wrap it up there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome sauce. Okay. All right. Be kind to yourself and everybody else. We'll talk to you again really soon. Bye-bye.